Nobody hands you a manual when you become a parent. Instead, they hand you this slippery, slimy thing called a kid. And from that moment on, you're a parent, often making up the whole thing. Well, maybe not making it all up. You're usually learning by watching people, often on a lack of sleep, and often wondering if you're doing this whole parenting thing right or wrong. I'm in the thick of it right now, and perhaps you're as well. This is Deep Cuts. It's where I take the conversations that I had on the You Potential podcast with world-class thinkers, doers, artists, and authors, and then pull out a few major themes and dissect them and distill them down so we can implement the lessons in our lives today. Today's conversation was with Dr. Todd Kashdan, a psychology researcher at George Mason University, author of some of the most cited work in the field on curiosity, psychological flexibility, and well-being. He also is the author of several fantastic books. I highly recommend you go check him out. Before we get into this Deep Cuts episode, please subscribe here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We need to start at this one spot where Todd talks about parenting on principles. Listen here.
Since my kids were 5 years old, they could recite the 3 principles of Todd as their dad, which was 1, I'm going to make you laugh. 2, I'm going to teach you stuff. And then the third one is, I'm always going to be there.
3 principles, not a rule book, not just a chart on the fridge. 3 things his kids can repeat back since the age of 5. Most of us, we're not doing this. We're doing the opposite. We're making rules about screens, food, grades, sports, bedtimes. I know I'm certainly doing those things. And underneath all of it, if we're being honest, is the same quiet hope that if we get the rules right, perhaps we can control how the kids turn out. Here's the big thing that Todd taught me during this conversation. Parent from principles, not rules, because rules break and principles scale. Todd's 3 principles didn't come out of a parenting book. They really didn't. They came from him growing up without a father at all. His father left when Todd was only 2 years old. His mom raised twin boys on a supermarket salary while recovering from a double mastectomy. She died of cancer when Todd was just 12 years old. He had almost no role model for what a present engaged father looked like. So he had a choice to make. He could carry out as if he had this wound and it was with him forever and he would have to pass it forward. Or he could decide that in the absence of itself of a father, he would teach himself what to do. Here's how Todd put it.
There's a penalty for those of us that didn't have engaged parents, but I don't think we should walk around with that as if like a name tag where I seek pity and sympathy for the difficulties I face. I've had decades to work with this, and I think all of us should basically try not to be enslaved by our past, but use it as a comparator of this will not take place again on my watch.
What Todd did has a name in the field of positive psychology. It's called post-traumatic growth. The idea is straightforward. Some people, after going through something hard, end up changing in ways they couldn't have otherwise. They don't break, they actually grow. Not because of the hard thing was good, because what they choose to do with that hard thing afterward. Perhaps in this case, they build stronger relationships. They get clear on what really matters. They live with more purpose. The pain doesn't go away, but it stops being the thing running the show. Todd chose to make a different choice. This will not take place on my watch again. I love how he said that part in our conversation. And every parent listening, including myself, has some version of something that we're carrying along. We all do. That's part of being human. Whatever that is for you, you don't have to name it right now. That's not the point. The point is, the past doesn't need to be the reason you parent the way you do. It can be data that informs us how we want to or not want to parent. You get to decide what gets carried forward and what stops with you, as Todd says. That's the soil that principles get planted and grow. Now here's where principles get tested. Todd told me his story about a thing called Beach Week. Essentially, picture high school seniors from his county all go down to the same beach. Hundreds of kids, they rent out houses at the same beach, like I said, and they spend the week drinking, partying, dating. Everything you'd imagine 18-year-olds would be doing without parents around. Except Todd's daughter's house had a parent, Todd himself, as a chaperone. We have one adult, 18 seniors. Listen to Todd talk about this.
I gave them an Oscar-winning speech in the beginning of the week. And one of the principles was just what we're talking about, which is like, I'm not here to narc and tell your parents everything you do when you're here. I'm here to nip problems in the bud, solve problems, and then try to envision future problems that might possibly. It's the only way I can do that is if I get intel. Like, you have to give me X information and trust me that I will use it for the forces of good to make you have the best time.
That word, intel, kept coming up in our conversation. I love this word intel and how Todd describes it. Todd doesn't probe. He doesn't interrogate. He doesn't punish first. He earns access to what his daughters actually do think and feel because they know he's not there to control them with rules. He's there to help them think. And here's the connection back to principles. Intel doesn't come from rules. Rules tell a kid what they can't do, so they hide it, because that's what kids do. Principles tell a kid what you stand for. And when a kid knows what you stand for, they bring the hard stuff to you, as Todd describes. Todd's 3 principles from when his kids were just 5 years old are: I'm going to make you laugh, I'm going to teach you stuff, and I'm always going to be there for you. Almost 20 years later, those same principles are still there. That's why his daughters tell him things at 3 a.m, or when their car breaks down or the Ubers are unavailable after a night of going out. They call him to help him. Not because he's going to get mad, because he'll always be there. That's why 18-year-old high school seniors trusted him to chaperone Beach Week. The rules would have been broken hundreds of times by now. The principles held. The cult of high achievers. Where Todd's principles and his philosophy get tested again is the moment every parent of a school-age kid is facing right now. The pressure to optimize, to create the most effective and productive kid ever known. He calls it the cult of high-achieving kids. The tutors, the SAT preps, the travel teams, the elite music programs, the sports that no longer feel like a sport. It's a development pathway, remember. When Todd's daughters were 15 years old, they asked him how to get into a top-tier college. He sat them down and gave them what I think was a very clean, clear framework for raising teenagers for them to understand. He called it Path A or Path B. Listen here.
One pathway is you're going to get into University of Virginia, the best school in the state that I live in right now, or an Ivy League school, and that's going to require you're going to take SAT, prep courses, achievement test prep courses. You're going to get tutoring. You're going to have, if you start a club, especially for like an elderly community population, teach them how to like code or, like do their taxes online. Like that's the kind of club, that's the kind of extracurricular activity that colleges love to see. Intergenerational generativity from young to old. And you study on the weekends and you'll master and you'll get over an A in all of your classes. But the price is you love sports, you love hanging with your friends, you love partying, you love going to dance clubs, you like to skateboard at the time. And so say bye-bye to those things, because the people that get into these schools, while you're doing that, they're doing an internship at the British Parliament across the Atlantic Ocean. Or you have good genetics, you're pretty good at taking tests, you do fine, just do your homework, I'm not going to be on top of you, and enjoy like this rich, complicated, sophisticated life, because you only have one chance to be like in high school.
I can't help but name something here. Todd is talking about parenting and helping his kids understand these decisions, but he's also describing one of the most expensive financial products in North America right now that we're all facing. The optimized childhood isn't free. The tutoring is real money. The elite hockey programs or sport programs, the private music coach, the overscheduled weekends, the unpaid summer internships in another country that only works when mom and dad cover the flights and the rent. It all costs money. We are spending tens of thousands of dollars a year buying our kids a shot at a slightly better school or a chance to perhaps slightly, maybe not at all, play professional sports. So we tell ourselves. I'm not saying these things are bad. Often they're good. A lot of times they're great. But we can't lose sight of the fact that these are also financial decisions. But we call them parenting so we don't feel like they're financial decisions. We feel the pain of paying for them. And the cost isn't just money, it's also time, sleep, Saturdays, space to breathe a little for the kid, space to be bored, space to figure out who your kid actually is when nobody is measuring them or keeping the score. The research on this is pretty clear. It's not income, it's not where your kid went to school that develops enduring levels of well-being. It's the depths of the relationships they had. Todd talked about this directly.
And we do know that, this is the number one predictor across culturally of what predicts happiness. Doesn't matter how much you like happiness. We kind of all want a decent amount of happiness, lasting, significant, meaningful interactions and relationships. If you want that, path A of that hardcore studying is not the path where that ends up happening.
So here's the question. If the data says relationships are one of the strongest predictors of a good life, of a meaningful life, and path A seems to systematically trade relationships for credentials, what exactly are we buying when we sign our kids up to optimize them? This is where I think principles make so much sense. Our rule says we do hockey 5 days a week because that's our schedule. That's what you need to do to make the rep programs. Instead of principle says, we want our kids to have deep friendships. We want them to learn a sport, a skill. We want them to be good at a craft. And we want them time to develop. And we'll choose whatever activity supports that. And here's the part that matters. The answer might still be, say, hockey 5 days a week. Same activity, same schedule, but the way you got there is different. One is inherited from a league's calendar or what we should do to optimize this child. The other was chosen from what you actually value and what your kid actually values. That difference shapes everything. Parent from principles, not rules, because rules break and principles, they scale. There's another part of this conversation that really stuck with me. Todd mentioned this concept. I'd never heard about it before, but it's from Jay Van Bevel called the 10% retirement. You don't have to quit your career. You don't have to slow down dramatically or drastically change everything. You quietly stop chasing the last 10% of status gain. We know we're all doing this to some degree. The bigger the raise, the house, the nicer car, the next promotion, the extra committee because it looks good on my resume, the Saturday to the office. When we stop chasing that 10% status, to the outside world, maybe nothing changes. But internally, you bought yourself 10% of your life back, and you spend it then on things that actually predict whether the next 30 years are going to feel like a damn good life. A lot of us, parents that is, we're exhausted doing it. We're running the exact same achievement treadmill we say we don't want our kids trapped on. Sometimes, perhaps, the most parental thing we can do is take back our 10% so that our kids can see and model how we are living. Toward the end of our conversation, I asked Todd what he'd want his grandkids to know about living a meaningful life. Listen here, he doesn't hesitate at all. Here's his answer.
For me, I really think psychological flexibility is the je ne sais quoi. And I think it's that everyone has this jagged profile of skills, abilities, personality traits, like built-in capacities and things that you've developed over the course of your lifetime. And the way that you're going to create the greatest success in your life, however you want to define success, you have to figure out what element, what dimension of that jagged profile is going to work best in this situation that I'm in right now. Don't hold any dimension, capacity, or strength too tightly because you might need something else for this situation that comes next.
Psychological flexibility. Let me say what that actually means in plain English, because Todd has spent his career on it and I want this to land. It is a critically important piece of information. For Todd, psychological flexibility is kind of the foundation underneath everything in a way. Psychological flexibility. It's basically the ability to meet each moment differently, not to use the same move or skill for everything, to pause and ask ourselves, what did this moment actually need from me? Most of us, we walk around with one or two strengths we lean on for everything. Maybe you're the disciplined one, or maybe you're the encourager, or maybe you're the fixer. Whatever your move and strength is, you keep using it because it's worked before. For Todd, it seems like this is the closest thing he has to a unified theory that he really stands for. Lots of his research on curiosity, social anxiety, meaning, creativity, grit points back to this underlying skill. Instead of reacting the same way in every situation, you stop and ask yourself, what does this situation need from you? And this matters for parenting a lot, because we don't raise kids to be just one thing. We don't want to. We raise kids who can flex, to be flexible. The kid who can be brave when bravery is needed. The kid who being quiet when listening is needed. The kid who could hold their ground when something matters, but yet the kid who can let it go when it doesn't. The kid who can change their mind without losing themselves. We don't teach that with rules. We model it by being flexible ourselves. Two of the muscles psychological flexibility runs on are curiosity and what Todd calls as being a principled rebel. I want to spend a couple minutes on each because they're parenting skills hiding inside of wonderful research papers. Todd talks about curiosity in a way I really like. He's got a fantastic book, you should get it. It's not trivia, it's not random facts, more like staying open instead of instantly deciding you already know what something means. Most of us walk around handing out verdicts. The coach is unfair. The kid is just rude. My teenager is lazy. Curiosity is the move that pauses and asks, what else could be true here? It's the difference between my daughter is being defiant and I wonder what she's protecting right now. The second muscle is teaching our kids how to question authority in a principled way. Here's how Todd put it.
The number one variable that increases the odds that your message is going to be heard by the majority or the people in power or the people that are your overlords that are controlling you in some way is consistency. And consistency doesn't mean saying the same thing over. A lot of activists get this wrong.
Consistency isn't repetition. Consistency is showing up with the same principle applied calmly with real evidence every time. And the kicker, without offering an alternative to what you're criticizing, you're not making an argument, you're just complaining. Kids who learn this skill at 15 often become the adults who can change institutions at 40. They don't get steamrolled, they don't burn out, they don't yell into the void when no one's listening because they're just yelling. They build a case, hold the line, and bring people along with them. Both of those, curiosity and principled disagreement, are flexibility in action. So here's the practical part of the conversation today. I've got 2 exercises based on this conversation. Pick one or both if you're feeling ambitious. The first one is to write your 3 principles. Sit down for 15 minutes, not at your kitchen table and the kids are running around, somewhere quiet, and ask yourself the question Todd asked himself. If my kids had to recite 3 principles tomorrow morning of what I stood for, what would they say? 3 things, each of them no longer than a sentence, each of them true whether you're tired or not, each of them survivable across the next decades. If you can't get to 3, start with 1. Todd's first principle is, I'm going to make you laugh. It doesn't have to be profound. It has to be yours. The second exercise that came from my conversation with Todd is strength spotting. This is a practice in positive psychology called strength spotting. The research goes back to Peterson and Seligman's work on character strengths. It's super interesting. Basically, they've come up with character strengths like curiosity, kindness, perseverance, fairness that show up across all cultures and predict thriving and a good life. The idea is simple. You notice your kid doing something good beneath the results itself, their strengths, and you say it out loud. You stop focusing only on the outcome. and start noticing the strength or trait underneath it. Todd had the best language for this that I've ever heard.
When we highlight, bold, italicize the things we see, like don't assume just because it's happening that it's being ingrained in them and intentionally absorbed into their sense of self. It's up to us to dog ear the page, lick our finger on the page and be like, hey, listen, this is what I see. Look, you don't just say your kid's amazing, they're smart, they're beautiful. You, with great precision, you describe exactly what they've become because you've seen the entire journey. And I don't think enough people spend enough time doing this, because I know when I die that my kids will remember this, of like, I've helped them clarify the elements of themselves that are excellent that they've constructed, and I've given them a way to articulate it.
Bold, italicized, dog-ear the page with great precision. I mean, what great descriptive language Todd talks about here. My body just feels good hearing that. Here's an example of what it looks like in real life. Not good job or good game. That's a verdict on the outcome. Strength spotting names the trait inside the moment or the strength. I tried this with my son at hockey practice the other day. He had a couple rough plays, some rough shots. He missed a few passes. And sometimes I noticed him frustrated after it. And the old me would have said something like this after practice. You gotta bear down, you gotta work harder. But like, to a 10-year-old mind, what does bearing down and work harder actually mean? Instead, I said, hey, I saw you make that pass that you really didn't like. I saw you make that shot that you really didn't like. And instead of putting your head down, you looked quite resilient and you went back in line and did it over again. I was proud that you didn't get frustrated. Good job, buddy. That's the part I'm going to remember, is focusing on the strengths, whether it's for my kids or other people in my lives. And you know what? He looked at me different when I said that, because he felt it. He knew what he wanted to do better. And he felt that he wasn't being evaluated on the outcome or the verdict. Instead, he was being evaluated on the character of who he is. That's strength spotting. It's when we can notice the strengths and say them to the kid. You're not optimizing them. You're showing them who they already are, which is the actual job of perhaps being a parent. Well, one of the jobs. As I said at the beginning, no one hands you a manual when you become a parent. They hand you this slippery kid, and you gotta figure out how you're gonna be the best parent possible. For me, as a father, Todd's 3 lines have been impacting how I see my role as a parent. I'm gonna make you laugh. I'm gonna teach you stuff. I'm always gonna be there. Simple, repeatable survival principles across decades. The theme that I really want to put forth today is parent from principles, not rules, because rules break and principles can scale. Here's the question that I'm leaving with you this week. If your kid had to recite 3 principles back to you tomorrow morning about you being a parent, what would they say? Would they have anything to say? Sometimes it's not the answers we learn from, but the questions. This has been Deep Cuts. I'm Sean Maslick. I highly encourage you to check out my full conversation with Dr. Todd Kashdan. It's episode 11. Dr. Kashdan is a phenomenal thinker, an amazing communicator. I promise you it will be an hour well spent. If you've been enjoying these conversations, please subscribe here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, take care.